post lunch this session, also I'll be available for the queries if any. So during the session, if there are certain queries, either the participants can unmute and ask, or they can put the query in the chat box, and the coordinators requested to kindly interrupt me in between, and then the queries can be addressed in between. With this, let me start the sharing of my screen, and then let me start with this. So, ma'am, I think I need
Sir,
permission of sharing the screen.
sir,
Yeah, because I'm getting a message of this
yes, sir.
sharing has been disabled.
Yes. Sir, are you able to share now? Can you see
Let
the
me try.
rights?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. So I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Great. Thank you. So thank you very much, ma'am. And
You're welcome, sir.
very good afternoon, all participants. Formally, let's start with the session today. As the topic of my talk today is adding intelligence to engineering system. I believe that most of the participants in this STTP are from the engineering background, and most of them are supposed to are I think from CS, IT, and electronics background. So I'm sure they will find this discussion useful, and those who are not having the background, for them also have tried to keep the things not so highly technical from CSIT viewpoint, but they will also be able to understand and get something out of this. Adding intelligence to the engineering system. Dear friends, till now, engineering effectively was an automated process, be it a civil engineering, electrical engineering, electronics engineering, mechanical engineering, and later CS and IT as well, where the target was mostly an automated process. And in CSIT, it was mostly through programming and algorithms and softwares. And the purpose was simple, that make all things happening using various software and hardware, and with time internet and communication added to more flexibility, and we tried to develop various interactive GUI based and internet based softwares and hardware which can be used from the remote places as well. Online teaching, online interaction, online meeting, all these are one of the fantastic examples which we have become habitual now without really knowing what is happening in the background, without really bothering how all these things are being supported. But of late, last few years, things have gone even further, and we have targeted to look for more intelligence than just automation, more intelligence than just communication, more intelligence than just processing, computation, and communication. For example, just let's have a look on what we can see over this is that all of these probably can see what we have got is a kind of one smart Air Force weapon, which is Rafale. We all are well aware of this. India has got one of the excellent Air Force weapons in form of one new control and automated and intelligent aeroplane, fighter plane, which is nothing but Rafale. We are fortunate that we have got some of these and many more to come to strengthen our forces. But while talking of an engineering system and while talking of AI, ML, and data science, why we are talking of Rafale, probably some of you must be wondering. Well, your answer will be very soon there by looking at the video which I'm going to play with all of you in the coming slide. I'm not sure whether audio of that video will reach to you or not, but still if it doesn't reach, I'm sure by looking at the video and reading the captions, you will be able to understand the fantastic powers and intelligence of this particular weapon, of this particular fighter plane.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
So, dear friends, I'm sure you have enjoyed the video. Maybe you might not have got the audio, but from the video, if you could see, the Rafael has got some of the fantastic engineering and intelligent combination of hardware and software. Why I'm saying this, all of you just have seen three different primary features along with many more. First being the Sky Shield, which is a kind of a EW support jamming system where enemies' radars are being deceived and the initial formation of multiple Rafales going for the attack mode is not detected, or the radars are not able to identify the formation at the initial stages, and Sky Shield will be able to deceive it. The Rafael also supports a light shield where the close protection of this is possible, and the jamming provided by the enemy's radars and control systems will be escaped, and still the corresponding Rafales, multiple Rafales will be able to interact with each other, and through light shield will be able to make their own formation, and the enemy will not be able to disrupt the processing. Finally, there are going to be various missiles which are ready for attacking on such electronic systems. And in that case, X-Guard comes into picture, and the missiles and radar system gets deceived, where the target of the corresponding situation is off tracked, and the attacking by the missiles will get offshoot, and the Rafales will safely lead to the attack and make it very precise. When we say all this, it's all effectively engineering. It's all integration of multiple engineerings. It's not only aerospace, it's not only physics, it's not only electrical, it's a combination of optical science, physics, aerospace, chemicals, chemical engineering, material science, mechanical engineering, electronics and communication, computer and IT, and integration of sensors and instrumentation. Yes, all these things collectively will come, they lead to a special kind of a bombing system supported by the Rafael, which is known as a spice bombing being supported through Rafael. The spice bombing, which is being used for such attacks, has a drop and forget option. It can work in all kind of weathers. It can work in all kind of lighting conditions. Electro-optical with high precision is the target. And the best part of this spice bombing being that it is able to engage relocatable targets. Even if the target is relocating itself, still the spice bomb will be able to reach to that. because it uses a kind of a dynamic positioning along with image processing of 100 different targets, and the identification of the target will be done using various image processing as well as geographical coordinate system. Some of the intelligent image matching algorithms have been added where different targets versus the final positions target images will be captured, their matching will be done, and find out the corresponding target, even if it's relocatable from the original coordinates. And all that will be done, and accordingly, the target will be identified and the bombing will be done. The bomb is in a position of dropping, and then automatically it will be readjusting its position by dynamic routing, GPS, and even if a GPS fails, inertial navigation system, INS. Dear friends, all these words look to be so simple, but they are highly complex engineering applications and systems. And all this happening by making certain best intelligence combinations. Just imagine what kind of intelligence has been added to such a warfare system. It's a network of intelligent systems, various Rafael's networks collectively integrating and making a formation, each of them behaving intelligently with the ultimate precision of a few millimeters, deceiving the enemy through various control systems, automated target identification through image processing, GPS, inertial navigation system, and optical support, self-organization and self-adaptation and relocation by having all different kind of internal readjustable logics. Self-learning through machine learning can be possible at present, maybe without machine learning also some kind of a learning, and adaptation in real time. Will all these things really make a big work in the corresponding system? What else do you expect in an intelligent engineering system? Such an engineering system is a perfect amalgamation of multiple technologies and engineerings combined with AI, data science, and maybe ML as well. But things don't stop here. Rafael is just one of the examples of an perfect intelligent engineering system, but the future is going to be really much more intelligent, and in future ICT role is going to really increase in a big way. The future interdisciplinary. Yeah. Any queries? Okay. In future, we can have a lot of interdiscipline applications come into the picture, which will be really very complex applications. Future is going to seek the evolution of social networking communities, and we need to have a lot of that data to be processed and tracked. Ultimately, unstructured data being generated nowadays, and all that generated data is voluminous, massive, and it's a big data. Out of that, meaningful and useful information needs to be extracted, but there can be a lot of noise as well. And still we need to remove the noise and find out the relevant information. All that relevant information might have a high dimensionality, and we have to deal with all that by reduction or minimization or real processing to be this. And the more important part being all this to be done in a real time. We won't have months together to process this data. We won't have hours together to process the data. We will have few seconds and maybe few minutes only to process such data in real time. So ultimately, based on specific applications, we could see a lot of variety of applications. For example, companies like Microsoft, Amazon, and many more have already started working on the COVID vaccine distribution system we managed. That will require a lot of IT support. It's not just a medical science. It's not just kind of a biomedical or bioinstrumentation, or it's not just pharmaceutical companies. A lot more than that for effective distribution and reaching and managing all that will require a lot of IT support, and companies like Microsoft and many more are already coming up with various kind of software and technical support for such distributions and management. All that happening because nowadays the computation and communication, they have merged together. When we look at the mobile, effectively, mobile is not just a communication device anymore. It is equally supporting computing also. Laptops, they are no more just a computing device. They are providing a lot of a communication, various software and hardware providing all that also. So most of those things are merging together, and we are talking of a lot of digital data being generated. It is claimed that the data generated per day at present 21st century is more than the data generated in 1 year in the 20th century or in the 1990s or so. So 20 years back, whatever data was generated over a year, more than that data gets generated now in a particular day. That's the kind of volume data being generated. All that is happening because a lot of sensors and networked devices are available. All kind of devices have kind of sensors and networking support. We talk of watches, we talk of bracelets, we talk of mobiles, we talk of Bluetooth devices, we talk of audio, video supportive cameras, speakers, mics, and many more like that. Smartwatches, all these being integrated to become some of the best communication and computing integration. In the future, challenges which industry is going to see is going to be that we have to have the effective distribution, mobility, and autonomy, which can be probably managed by deterministic algorithms. Future systems will require system of systems, network of networks, agents of agents. All that again can be deterministic process. But there will be a lot of evolving systems which are largely independent in nature, and synchronization among all of them will be needed, which will require some intelligent support. This future is going to see a lot of new architectures because we are going beyond computers and mobiles for such kind of devices, and their architecture of day-to-day living or all kind of smart homes, smart cities will have a different kind of devices and non-CEC devices also. So architectures will be evolving in a big way. There will be hybrid and dynamic, and we need various kind of a soft computing support for there. We are going to see very complex and very adaptive systems. And when we talk of adaptation and handling the complexity, there will be no choice but to use soft computing like fuzzy logic, neural networks, genetic algorithms, and all these. And all these are part of intelligence, which needs to be provided to the engineering systems. Ultimately, future, we need to provide a lot of intelligence, and hardware already exists, which is quite fast, quite powerful, and provides a lot of speed. But intelligence will primarily come through software, and that is a bigger challenge in the future to be handled. What does intelligence mean? Let's have a look on various aspects of intelligence. Intelligence is a very, very complex term which has a lot of parameters. Intelligence means probably some kind of a mental abilities for reasoning, planning, problem solving, thinking, abstraction, comprehension, complex ideas handling, creation of the new knowledge, learning from the others' mistakes, learning from the experience, intuition, innovation, creativity, and many more like that. All these things become part of intelligence. So it's probably not easy to provide all these things at the same time, but many of these are being attempted via different aspects of intelligence. Like we talk of a machine learning, provide some kind of a learning, but we provide things like expert systems, provide kind of a reasoning. We provide fuzzy logic to handle uncertainty. We provide genetic algorithms to provide some kind of a abstraction and optimization. So there are different aspects of intelligence, and intelligence needs to be supported via various alternates. So when we say intelligence, effectively, it's probably first aspect of the intelligence, which we can say is interpreting the information. Now we have been processing the information. Processing, normal computing support, normal CPUs, normal algorithms, hardware, software can do. When it comes to interpretation, we mean adding the intelligence by having semantic meaning of that, by comprehending the information, by understanding and identifying the meaning, not just the syntactical information, but the logical or semantic information out of total data. It also means identify the relationship between various phenomena or various objects existing into the database or into the data science. We have to just not be on the syntactical level, but also understand the correlation between various data being generated, and I have correlation for taking certain decisions. So ultimately, once we have certain new knowledge comprehended or interpreted, we have to apply that for the new conditions for taking certain useful decisions. Like we talk of a Google Maps, we talk of natural language processing, Google Assistant, we have talk of various similar Amazon's Alexa and many more like that. All these are applying this information by various comprehension for the new conditions. It also means learning from the mistakes made by himself or herself, as well as mistakes not made, but observed from others' mistakes. It's not always necessary that a person should meet an accident to learn the rules of driving. The person can observe, we all can see others making mistake, and we try to make sure that we don't make those mistakes on the road, which can lead to accidents. It's all learning which we are habitual to do without really feeling that we are applying so much intelligence at the back end. But when it comes to computing system, engineering system, all this needs to be programmed one or other way so that the learning becomes possible. And the more important part of intelligence coming in form of intuitive working with the partial knowledge. Many a times we say that due to intuition, we could take a good decision. Many times we are able to do well in a new situation which we have never faced. Many times we are able to take a decision which helped us going in an unseen situation, and still we could get to a better aspect of the problem. All that happens because somewhere creativity or intuition inside of our brain works, and then we are able to get the intelligent processing. All that needs to be programmed and to be added to the engineering systems. If I talk of only machine learning and we claim that machine learning will be able to do all this, the answer is obviously no. So it's not that only machine learning is the answer to this. It's not that only AI is the answer to this. It is going to be a combination of many different aspects of various intelligent processing. And effectively, for this, primarily 4 different directions could be used to provide intelligence. First kind of intelligence, which has been attempted during last 20-30 years, has been called that as hard computing. The traditional algorithms, the divide and conquer algorithms, dynamic programming, greedy algorithms, and many more like that, all those, even we have some kind of optimizational algorithms, like we call of some mathematical solutions already existing, dual M method, big M method, or we have some kind of optimizational and other similar defined deterministic solutions, simplex method, and all those, which can be used to find out accurate results by doing various modelings in a precise manner. But they all work only for smaller problems where the size of the problem or the size of the input domain doesn't increase very high. When it goes to very bigger size problems, the traditional hard computing algorithms become NP-complete problems. They are NP problems, non-deterministic polynomial problems, and they effectively may not be able to give reasonable results in a reasonable time. Those situations, soft computing comes into picture, where we can get near optimal solutions. Inexact methods could be used, but inexact answers to the intractable problems will come. We might have a very complex problem. We might not be able to get the best solution, but we might be able to generate a near best solution by exact or approximation algorithms. So that's another domain which is being used in form of approximation algorithms, as well as things like fuzzy logic, etc., where all this can be achieved. This provides reasonable and a significant paradigm shift from the computing, where the aim is not just to do in a deterministic manner of the processing, but do the processing using a human mind's simulation. The way our human mind is able to process and take decisions, the soft computing tries to simulate that behavior and do similar situations. So for many real world problems, we are all well aware of the machines like washing machines and intelligent machines, where a lot of AI and fuzzy logic being used for taking similar decisions. Recent times, machine learning has come a big way, and effectively the theme being where we are targeting to have an automation of the automation itself. We want that whatever automation process was being done, that a process needed earlier systematic coding and programming, we want to go away with that and let internally the computer do all that programming also for us. We want the programs not to be written by the programmer. We want the programs to be generated by the computers using the data available for the machine learning. Another aspect of the intelligence will be possible by doing some optimizational algorithms, swarm intelligent algorithms, genetic algorithms, etc., etc., where multiple or single objective problems will be solved, and a lot of research already being carried out where a lot of these algorithms are being used for the purpose. So when we want to provide intelligence through the software, effectively what we need is certain data. We need a lot of data, experimental data, and ultimately the learning will mean from this data, we should be able to generate some generalization and rules, generic rules available through which decisions can be made. Soft computing effectively derive their power of generalization from approximation or interpolation. So lot of data being available, which might give some kind of approximation or interpolation. And if unseen data comes, unseen inputs come, still we should be able to generate output based on this generalization, which gets achieved via various soft computing techniques. The more difficulty in this direction comes when the data becomes high dimensional. The data becomes n-dimensional space and n is very big. The processing, deterministic processing will take months together to compute all that, and that much time will never be affordable. So we need some kind of smart, intelligent processing, which could be achieved by using things like genetic algorithms or things like fuzzy logic, etc. Similarly, The pre-processing of all this will be always needed because there could be a lot of noise. There could be a lot of data which needs to be filtered. There could be some redundant or some overlapping information where there could be some missing information. Hence, we need the availability of the data to be ensured, filtering and pre-processing to be applied, and then identifying the proper technique. In some situations, neural networks could be useful. Somewhere CNN may be needed. Somewhere ML could be used through deep learning. Somewhere fuzzy logic and genetic algorithm hybrid model could be useful. Somewhere neural networks and fuzzy logic as a hybrid model may be needed, and like that. So it's not that simple just to say which one to apply where. It has to be problem specific. Intelligence through software will require now three aspects to be addressed. One being soft computing, second being machine learning, and third being optimization. Earlier, they used to be aimed in isolation and independently applied, but time has come when these are all being integrated, and we are still doing all that in an interrelated manner. So soft computing along with machine learning, soft computing along with optimization, ML with optimization, and these all can be integrated for more useful products. Ultimately, coming to all these one by one, we will have a look on all these aspects and compare which one to be used and what situation. First thing, where soft computing comes, primarily it means we are trying to have the simulation of cognitive behavior of the human mind. Cognitive behavior of processing the approximate or ambiguous information, of processing it using various neurons and their interconnection, processing it through our DNA and various kind of similar approaches. Soft computing was one of the initial directions of providing intelligence. Long back in early 90s, when 30 years back, AI was being discussed. Primarily, expert systems and similar directions were attempted, which could not give useful results. Subsequently, AI was replaced by soft computing, and discussions about fuzzy logic, neural networks, genetic algorithms, and similar started, and suddenly the intelligence started getting added to the machines. Suddenly, a lot of swarm intelligence-based algorithms, a lot of a genetic and similar intelligence algorithms started coming into the market, and a lot of research as well as industrial automation through these started becoming a reality. Unlike hard computing, this supports imprecision handling. This also handles uncertainty, and it also provides support for approximation and partial truth handling, which is so common in most of the current data availability, where precision and certainty is never guaranteed because the data is always incomplete, and the interpretation and identification of the suitable dimensions is really, really a challenge. Comparing the two aspects of hard computing versus soft computing, well, conventional computing always earlier needed a highly well-defined and precise analytical model. In the case of soft computing, no precision is compulsory. A lot of imprecision could be handled. Hard computing normally will require a lot of computation time, hence big servers or supercomputers or parallel machines will be needed if I want to go for bigger size problems. On the other hand, if I'm talking of some real world problems, then they can be solved by soft computing in lesser time, and they might not give the best solution, but they might give some near optimal solution, which will be obviously low cost and can work with the partial truth as well, which may not be possible for the hard computing. When we talk of components of soft computing, primarily we talk of three different aspects. First being fuzzy logic, second being evolutionary computation, and third being neural networks. Neural networks being used in form of CNN and deep learning, etc. Also for ML, fuzzy logic being used for various fuzzy sets and overlapping sets, evolutionary computing being supported via various evolutionary algorithms like GA, etc., or various swarm intelligence and like ACO, BBO, and similar many more now available. Talking one by one, going to the fuzzy logic, where the strength of the fuzzy logic comes in form of imprecision handling, approximate reasoning, and computing with linguistic expressions. Whenever we have some information, we are representing the information in form of precise values of membership, or only being a member, not being a member is not possible, then fuzzy logic comes to the rescue. If I want to say that it's a sunny day today or it's a cold day, how cold it is very probably not easy to quantify and state that it is 78.3% cold today, or it is 89% cold today. But we say it's a cold, it's very cold, it's very, very cold, it's a sunny day, it's not a sunny day, it's a bright sunny day, and like that. We deal with linguistic expressions. We talk in those terms, but computer talks in a binary only. So we need an interface in between. And the fuzzy logic comes in between, which will be able to provide you support of processing with the words like high, low, very low, ultra high, and like that, which provides a continuous membership to various overlapping sets. Neural network, where the aim is always to simulate the human mind, which has millions and billions of neurons, and they have a complex network whose understanding is till date minimal. What kind of interconnectivity and how that kind of interconnectivity is established, how that gets reset, how that gets adapted, it's not very easy to understand. Cognitive science is working extensively. A lot of experiments are being done in that direction, but still there is a lot more to be explored. Neural networks try to just use that and make that as a black box and make some kind of an interconnection identified by various data availability. Because it is very data intensive, a lot of high computation at the back end is needed, and we need some kind of a good computing servers and CPUs to provide more precision to the neural networks. Of course, it requires a lot of mathematical understanding, mathematical formulation, modeling, and then rigorous training for effective output to be very good or precise. Third aspect, where we talked of these two things to be compared. Well, some situations where we want to have the qualitative domain knowledge to be used, then fuzzy logic will be more useful, because the domain knowledge might not be available in form of precise data, and neural networks need that kind of a precise data in terms of numbers, in terms of values, not in terms of the qualitative words, not in terms of visuals, not in terms of overlapping sets. So we want to work with the dynamic systems using certain qualitative or linguistic variables, go for fuzzy logic. On the other hand, if you have got a lot of parallel processing support available, you have got various kind of a network structures available, different connection strengths to be explored, and training data being available in the precise quantitative manner, go for the neural networks usage. Third aspect of the soft computing coming in terms of evolutionary computing. That is effectively the Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest. The way we say that the human being has evolved from long back over the years, and not useful or non-survivable components of the body have suddenly lapsed and they have not been into existence, and those which are being more used or those who deserve to be surviving, they have come together, and the same philosophy is used in the algorithmic form. talk of various optimizational algorithms being handled using various GA or swarm intelligence, where we talk of a big search space and we navigate through that search space. And we assume that those solutions which are optimal or near optimal, they should survive and others should collapse. The solutions which are not so promising, the solutions which are not fitter, the solutions which don't deserve to survive, they should be ultimately discarded, and better solutions should go to the next generations. And then next generations, crossover and mutation also might get applied for ensuring more exploration as well as exploitation, avoid local minima, or to ensure the global minima to be identified. So for various situations where the search space is very big, then genetic algorithms or swarm intelligence could be extremely useful. When the permutational problems are being discussed, where the size growth leads to exponential growth of the possible solutions or permutations of the solutions, such problems are called as NP-hard problems. And in those situations, GA or evolutionary or swarm intelligent algorithms can be extremely useful. They will be extremely powerful if the deterministic solutions are very slow. If they are very complicated, GA, etc., will give faster and near optimal solution in a reasonable time. We need to ensure various exploration and exploitation towards be always balanced for all such algorithms, and the whole trick of all research and optimization revolves around ensuring a proper balance at different stages among these two, so that there is no tapping into the local minima, and finally we get one of the best solutions from the global search space. But global search space is very big, hence we have to do all that with an approximation, with an imprecision as well. Then if I talk of evolutionary optimization, effectively evolutionary optimization has two different directions. One, which we call it as a single objective problem or single objective solution. And for that, what we say is we try to start with a single solution and then keep on improving it, refining it, so that we get better and better solution. That's a traditional optimizational that try with a single solution. Other, which is more popularly known as population-based solutions, where we try to generate lot of populations and survival of the fitter populations should continue, and population should keep on dynamically generating to various crossover optimization or some other natural selection and variation criteria. And then finally, some of these populations will be more fitter and more useful, and they will lead to optimal solutions, and others may get discarded in between at some stage. So either start with a single solution or with start multiple solutions and keep on refining, go for better and better solutions. Coming to second aspect of the intelligence, which is being attempted by providing via machine learning. Again, for some of us, machine learning could be an area which has started during the last few years, maybe last 5 years, we think. But no, this is as old as 1997, and Mitchell defined machine learning as a learning from past experience, improving the performance using intelligent programming. Expert systems were being made in the initial 1990s, and machine learning was being attempted to improve the performance of expert systems via that. So it's a new word, but effectively existing since last 25 or more than that years now. Ultimately, it means automating the automation. We are not talking of having the solutions which need to be programmed. We need some solution, we need some program which generates the program automatically, which generates the program from the computers automatically. So we need some kind of a data which will be able to do this process. It is a paradigm shift of the processing and the programming, because We need all data should be able to do this. No programs, no steps will be defined. No logic will be well defined at the initial stage. Why we say that? Because in every situation, such kind of machine learning is not needed. It's not that everywhere machine learning should be used. There could be certain situations where machine learning is not needed. Like if I want to calculate factorial of a number, you don't need an ML solution. You don't need an ML algorithm to do such work. You want to implement a payroll system? Well, you can make a simple software which will do this work for you. Machine learning is needed where human expertise don't exist. Like navigation on the Mars was being attempted by ISRO, and there was nothing available. Human was not going there. No human processing will take place. No previous information could be used. We needed some kind of a learning at the own level there itself. Here, the processing is being done by the humans, but we don't have an answer how we are able to do that. Sometimes we meet a person, we listen to a person, even after 10 years from his or her voice, we are able to identify who this person is. In a fraction of seconds, our brain is able to process and identify and recognize the person with whom I am talking to. All that happening in the human mind, but how that happening is being done is not explainable. You can't have a deterministic algorithm to tell how did you recognize this person, what kind of a processing get done, and how could you identify and match and recognize the person. So we are not able to explain, although the expertise exists for this. ML can do a solution to that. The solution is changing in real time. It's a dynamic routing system. Then machine learning can do a lot of roles. Like we talk of a Google Maps. Lot of data changing, especially due to nowadays agitation of the farmers. Lot of routes are being diverted. Then my traditional Google Map algorithms will not be sufficient. I have to identify in real time and come up with an alternate route, dynamic routing taking place, dynamic updation taking place based on the agitation, which routes are being blocked, which routes are more risky. Accordingly, all that needs to be processed, and in real time, the Google Map needs to generate the solutions. So all that is happening, and we need a lot of machine learning in such situations. When machine learning is taught effectively, we need the computers to program themselves, because writing software is not always very fast. Writing software, good software, takes months together and sometimes years together. And you can't have that much years spent for every application, and that will be a tremendous job to be done. Hence, nowadays, the machine learning programming is different. Earlier, programming meant we have to develop a program, provide inputs, and the system will generate an output. ML algorithms or ML systems, they mean you will have the data, you will know the output, and the system will automatically generate an internal program using which your future outputs can be identified and predicted. That is what is the power of machine learning, and it has made the bottleneck of the software development reduced to a greater extent, because all that is being done by the intelligent learning algorithms. When we come to machine learning problems, we can categorize them into 4 different categories. First being the discrete supervised learning based, which we call as a classification or categorization. Unsupervised and discrete set of problems where clustering is being attempted. Continuous supervised learning, where regression analysis and regression techniques are being used. And a dimensionality reduction, where continuous and unsupervised techniques are being applied. So all these problems can be solved by using supervised or unsupervised versus continuous or discrete data sets. For example, one of the success story of the ML, we are all well aware of a Google Map. And again, I have been discussing that. It was started long back sometimes in 2005 or so. But with the time, it has become such a fantastic success story because of a lot of features, because of a lot of data, because of a lot of algorithmic approaches, because of a lot of internal processing using deep learning algorithms. All kind of a map information, all kind of images, street views, weather, all that has been added, and that gets added every day, every minute. A lot of new data gets generated, a lot of new algorithms keep on working in the background. All data gets processed, and the routing, dynamic routing, all gets automatically adapted. And based on the new situations, the new environment, and automatic learning leads to a better and better and precise routes being told. We all many times can go to an unknown city, and still we can be largely dependent on Google Map to reach to our destination, and more likely than not, we reach to that in the right time at the right place. All that happening because of some of the excellent machine learning and data processing being applied at the back end. But at the back end, it's not only ML working, there are a lot of other algorithms also coming into the picture. Graph theoretical hierarchies are being used. The various Goldberg's landmark-based algorithms are used. A-star and A algorithms of AI being used. Graph algorithms like Dijkstra and bidirectional and pruning algorithms used. And various highway hierarchies from transportation engineering and civil engineering being used. And all these collectively, along with ML, are various algorithms working in the background for the Google Maps working. So it's a complex system internally comprising of various transportation, civil engineering, highway engineering, graph algorithms, artificial intelligence, as well as various neural networks, CNN, deep learning, etc. coming into picture. So machine learning nowadays is a buzzword. Everybody wants to use that without really feeling the applicability to be there. So we have to be very careful. If I want to use ML, I must know for which kind of application I am using and what kind of a data availability is there. Accordingly, I need to really identify the specific characteristics of the problem and ensure those to be reflected into the modeling so that accordingly the mathematically the corresponding model gets well defined, and then ML will be definitely going to give great results. Coming to the use of machine learning research opportunities, in one of the directions where I do work in the area of software engineering, I'll just list out certain possible research directions where a lot of ML is being attempted to find out defective classes in object-oriented software. Might have a lot of defective software classes or components which might be defective. Identifying them through ML is an open research area. Certain components are likely to be more critical than others, and identification of those can improve reliability of the software in a bigger manner, and that can be another direction of future research using ML here. Test case prioritization, test case minimization, reusable component identification are other areas where ML is being attempted, and a lot of success stories, especially in test case prioritization, etc., have been achieved via ML. Remodularization and improving the software quality using various ML and soft computing algorithms is being attempted, and architecture recovery, remodularization, improving cohesion coupling, all that is another aspect which has been very successful. And during last 5 years, a lot of research has happened in this direction, and it's one of the very promising and very area to work with. And there are many more such areas. For example, if I talk this to be solved by using ML, effectively software remodularization example I'll give so that you can understand how this should be modeled as a problem, and this becomes ultimately as a clustering problem. All these situations mean we need to divide my software into various clusters where the characteristics of the cluster will be dependent on the type of problem being solved. And then it will become an optimizational problem. For example, if I talk of software remodularization, if I say it is a clustering problem, effectively what I mean is that my well-modularized system should be easy to maintain. But over the time, modular structure gets disturbed because of frequent insertions, deletions, modifications, adaptations, changes into the software, and then software quality deteriorates. Removing that quality constraints and improving its quality ultimately requires the components to be highly cohesive and minimally coupled. It becomes a clustering problem where I want various components to be put in a single cluster such that within the cluster they are cohesive to each other, and outside the cluster they are minimally coupled or low coupled with the rest of the clusters outside of that particular cluster. So it's effectively a kind of a clustering problem. For bigger size of the problems, it will be exponentially growing, and hence it becomes an NP problem. And overall, mathematically, such problems are called as a graph partitioning problem, where a graph is to be divided into subgraphs so that inter-subgraph connectivity is minimal and intra-subgraph connectivity is maximal. So it's a graph partitioning problem, and mathematically, it is an hard problem, which is not solvable for bigger size of the graph vertices and edges. Hence, we need all these problems to be solved by using some heuristic and meta-heuristic algorithms of optimization. Optimizational problems, we define those in two kinds of problems, continuous and combinational optimizational problems. As the word suggests, continuous problems where the data will be in a continuous domain, and combinational where the data will be in the discrete domain. Combinational where the solution vector has different finite set of solutions, and because the values are discrete in nature. Continuous where infinite solutions can exist because in between of any two solutions, another solution is possible to be designed because the space is continuous in nature. Like real values, in between of any two real intervals, I can generate another real value in between because it is a continuously growing or decreasing or increasing function in terms of values over time. So continuous versus combinational optimization, both problems can be solved, and we can solve these problems by using two kinds of optimizational approaches. One we call as a single objective, other we name as multi-objective. As the word suggests, single objective will mean that number of objective functions will be single, and we will be trying to minimize or maximize that. Multi-objective will mean there will be multiple objectives, some of those to be minimized, some of those to be maximized, and many times they will be conflicting in nature. Single objective problem, as it suggests that we have got the problem to minimize a certain function or maximize a certain function where certain constraints are well defined. For example, I want to minimize the traveling time. I want to go from here to Delhi. So I'll say I want the fastest route in terms of a time, and constraints are available so that we know how much distance, how many toll taxes will come, what kind of a road quality will come, all that. If I want to minimize the time, obviously I want the fastest route. But if I want to minimize the distance, that may not be the fastest route. So I have to define what I want to minimize or maximize, and the constraints will be known to us. In this case, solution is clearly defined, and the search space is called to be totally ordered. Totally ordered because given two solutions, I can guaranteedly tell which solution is better than others. Hence, we have a clear objective, and wherever the objective is minimum, that solution is the best. Our target will be always to get a single best solution from that single objective function viewpoint. On the other hand, when we talk of multi-objective, things will be different. So in case of a single objective, the minimization problem effectively mean slowly we should generate better and better generation solutions, and we should be able to lead to the fastest or minimized solution over time. So in this case, simply everything is well defined. Till we are improving and minimizing our objective function, my solution is improving. As soon as we find that it is no more improving, maybe we have reached to the termination criteria. On the other hand, multi-objective, we say we have to optimize multiple parameters. Example, if I want to go to Delhi and I claim that I want to have the best solution. Now, best means maybe the fastest as well as the shortest. Fastest as well as the shortest mean minimize the distance, minimize the time. So two constraints, two objectives to be met. Third constraint or third objective also could be there, minimum oil consumption, maximum throughput, maximum average of my vehicle, minimum wear and tear of my vehicle. All these may not be achievable in a single manner. For example, if I want to go with the best route, it may be more costly because there are more tolls. So my cost may increase, time may decrease. If I go to a route which is not having tolls, which is not having road good quality, it may be a shorter route also. Distance traveled could be lesser also. So all these things make various conflicting objectives, and a single solution be claimed as best will not be possible. If I said that I want everything to be optimal, the time, the money, the distance, the wear and tear, everything to be optimal, there will not be one best solution which can be claimed to be the best. Because in that case, some optimal function could be increasing, some optimal could be decreasing. Distance decreased may lead to time increase, may lead to cost decrease or cost increase. All may come on some route. Hence, we have a Pareto optimal solution. Those who are not aware, once they start exploring multi-objective, they'll come to know what do we mean by Pareto optimal. But effectively, it's a set of solutions which are unordered, which may not be claimed to be ordered in the way because they are not a single solution which is optimal from all objective viewpoints. Obviously, this becomes more complex to be solved because here partial ordering also needs to be handled. And when we do all such things, such problems are called as NP-hard problems. And they are definitely more challenging to be solved. For solving multi-objective, a lot of meta-heuristic algorithms are being used. Meta-heuristic algorithms normally could be either population based like a genetic, etc., or it could be non-population based also. And a lot of similar algorithms do also exist. But in all these cases, effectively, single objective as well as multi-objective solutions can be obtained if we ensure that global convergence must happen. If we ensure that self-adaptation and the proper operator's choice and proper algorithm is adapted as per problem characteristics. In certain situations, PSO could be more useful. In some other situations, ACO could be more useful. In some other situations, BBO could be useful. In some other situations, harmony search could be useful. Sometimes gravitational search could be useful. Sometimes a crow search algorithm could be useful. So there are many other available. You have to effectively identify their suitability. And more important than that is apply the characteristics of the problem properly into the fitness function, into the objective function, and into the next population generation steps. If you can do that, you can get the best solutions. So whenever you apply all such algorithms, effectively 3 steps will happen in between. First will be initial population generation. Second will be improving that particular solution, and finally finding the output. Initial population generation could be randomly, but could be guided also. In between, in case of a genetic algorithms, they are called as a crossover and mutation. In case of a PSO, they will be meaning identify the new speed and the new position. In case of ACO, they will require the corresponding ants movement direction and ants corresponding behavior and various kind of ants being used. In case of ABC, artificial bee algorithm, so bees to be identified for various aspects and the population to be subdivided into subpopulations, and queen bee and all those to be identified, and all those steps in between improve the population so that next generation goes towards more optimal solution. Over multiple iterations of a 50, 100, we try to reach to a more optimal solutions, and finally set of optimal solutions for multi-objective get generated. All these steps are followed, and algorithm to algorithm, their implementation may vary, the operator may vary, crossover step may go with another different step, mutation may be replaced by another different, but primarily initial population, defining the population, selecting the new population, and finally generation of a set of results is going to be an abstract overview of such algorithms. Some of the common research areas where optimization can be applied can be in the area of networks, where routing, congestion, time, travel, traffic, flow, all these could be minimized or maximized. Efficiency could be maximized, traffic could be minimized, flow could be controlled, the delay could be minimized, loss could be minimized, energy loss could be reduced. Computer vision, where image processing needs to be processed, identification in a real time of various segments to be done, object identification, video capturing, tracking, gathering, extracting certain useful objects out of videos, identifying the future directions of the possible attacks, all that is various areas. In case of a VLSI design, like if I want to have integration of various circuits into a single area, how much is going to be the dissipation of the heat, minimize that heat dissipation, maximize the corresponding speed of the signal transfer between one circuit to other, and all those things could be addressed using optimization. Communication system, obviously the cost and the network packet loss, etc., to be minimized so that the communication becomes stable. Embedded systems, we are already talking of a lot of embedded systems being designed with minimum cost and maximum efficiency. Computing, signal processing, all these require some kind of parameters to be improved or some kind of parameters to be minimized. On the other hand, profit, energy saving, throughput, etc., be maximized. So there are a lot of opportunities of applying optimization also in form of one intelligent processing into various systems. Coming to the final discussions of my talk today, we can see that future is going to see intelligent machines which are going to be exceptionally intelligent in future, and things are going to proceed towards a lot of data will be generated, and that data processing in real time is not easy. It will be unprecedented and unstructured data. Hence, we need to process that by using some kind of imprecision handling, some kind of non-deterministic and meta-heuristic algorithms for handling in a real time and finding some near optimal solutions. Machine learning, soft computing, optimization are one of the possible answers, and maybe in future we might see some more new directions of these processing and algorithmic alternates coming up and be explored for greater research as well as industrial applications. ultimately, whenever you want to apply all these, proper domain knowledge and the proper applicability of all these aspects will be must if I want to get good results. Trying it as a black box by hit and trial methods many a times may not give good results or may take a lot of time to find good results. But if you use the domain knowledge, if you make the modeling with proper characteristics of the problem, the results will be really, really encouraging. Thank you very much. I'm sure some of you have got some information out of this, and you can explore your research areas and use whatever out of soft computing, ML, or optimization suits to your problems. Any questions anyone has, I'm coming to chat box and you're welcome to share your questions.
Yes, participants, if you have any query, you can share it in chat box, or you can unmute yourself and you can ask the query. Hello, sir, my voice is audible?
Yes, ma'am. I can get
Yes,
your voice.
participants, if you have any query, you please ask. You can unmute your mic and you can ask a query.
I think there are no queries from the participants.
Yes, I think there is no query.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
yes, yeah, they're saying
Lavanya
that there
and
is no
Rajesh
query.
Korea, they have, okay, Lavanya tells no queries. Yeah.
Okay, sir, thank you very much for the
Thank you,
session.
ma'am.
And you have given a very basic knowledge, machine learning, how it is different from traditional systems, how machine learning came into pictures, how it is adding intelligence to the computer systems. I think the session was very good for the participants who were who didn't have a background knowledge of it. Those who were naive to this technology, for them also this was a very good session. And thank you very much, sir. You have spared your time, second time for us.
Yeah,
In future also, we hope to collaborate for such things. Thank you very much.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. Thank you very much. So thank you all. I'm getting some feedback from various participants. Thank
Yes.
you, Saji. Thank you, Lavanya. Thank you, is it Mola, Mandeep, Shamala Prakash, Ravi, Amit Verma, Sonika, and Khyati, Lavanya, Amit again, Saji again, Amit ji again. Thank you, Nehal. Naresh ji, thank you. So thank you all participants.
So you can see from the feedback, the audience were connected to you throughout the session.
Yeah, that's really great. I don't know, because online is always very easy to just log in and then keep yourself busy with other work. So I don't know, but probably some of the participants or many of them were really involved into the session. So
Yes,
thank you very much. Thank you all participants. Amandeep, thank you. Priyadarshini, thank you. So I think we can wind up.
Yes,
So,
sir, we can.
thanks to all participants once again. Thank you for the patient hearing, and I'm hopeful that it will be helpful to you in future in some way. And my heartful thanks to the coordinator, Dr. Kiran Jyoti, and Guru Nanak Dev Engineering College and their team for excellent efforts in this difficult time. And thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you all. Kiranji, Naresh ji. Thank you all. I think I can leave.
Okay, participants. we'll wind up today, and for the tomorrow we are having hands-on sessions. All the 3 sessions are hands-on sessions, so kindly be on time and take the maximum benefit of it. Tomorrow we have with us engineer Vipin Gupta from Unit Solutions, and he will be giving a hands-on data analytics using Hive and data analytics using HBase. Then we have our in-house speaker in the afternoon, and he will be having your session on data visualization and analysis using some tool. So all of you kindly be present by 9:25 so that we can start the session on time. And feedback link will be shared in the WhatsApp group right after this session, after the closing of this session, right? Any query by the participants if you have?
Sir, ma'am, feedback form?
Feedback form will be shared in the WhatsApp group. Sir, are you there in WhatsApp group?
Yes, ma'am.
So it will be shared.
Okay, thank
Just
you.
in a minute, it will be shared.
Okay, thank you.
Any other query by the participants? You are not in the group. Okay, we are sharing in this chat group also. We are sharing in chat group also. Chat box में share कर दो सर, नहीं कर दो, ये chat box इथे, ये वाली chat box में करना ना. Copy कर. Yes, participants, it is shared in the chat box also. You can click on this and you can fill up the feedback form. Those who have not joined the WhatsApp group, it is very good if you can join so that you can be updated with the latest information. And even we are sharing the link of all the videos which are uploaded on YouTube on WhatsApp group every day. We are sending you the link of all the recordings of the sessions of all the experts in WhatsApp group. So if any one of you is not there in the WhatsApp group, it will be better if you can join that. Okay, thank you very much. We'll meet tomorrow at 9:25.